These entities that are present are trying to hold the family there because the longer they're there, the stronger these things are able to be.
Its goal is to just destroy the family.
In 1974, a brutal family massacre shattered the calm of a suburban Long Island neighborhood, setting the stage for one of America's most infamous horror legends. For years, tales of ghostly horrors and inexplicable phenomena plagued the house, captivating millions.
He said it was like a hooved figure marching on his chest.
There were shadows that were moving outside the door, up and down the hallway.
The unrelenting paranormal assault is just getting started.
What was really lurking behind the walls at 112 Ocean Avenue? And could the secret rooms uncovered decades later finally solve the mystery that has haunted investigators, skeptics, and believers alike? Prepare to dive deep into chilling discoveries that challenge everything we thought we knew about the Amityville house. The night of the DeFeo slayings. On the early morning of November 13, 1974, a series of horrifying events unfolded within the walls of 112 Ocean Avenue, forever staining the house's reputation. Ronald DeFeo Jr., only 23 years old, moved flawlessly through the home with a powerful hunting rifle, executing his entire family while they slept. 6 family members, including his parents and 4 siblings, were found lying face down, arranged in a chilling, ritualistic manner. The precision and eerie calm with which the slayings were carried out immediately raised unsettling questions that remain unanswered to this day. What makes the crime scene particularly perplexing is the absence of any struggle or sign of panic. Toxicology reports ruled out the possibility that the victims had been intoxicated or sedated. Yet, despite the brutal gunfire, totaling 9 shots fired in about 15 minutes, there was no reaction from the family, nor any noise that alerted the neighbors. The family dog's barking was the only reported sound, an odd anomaly amid such violence. This suggests an almost otherworldly quiet had descended over the house during the slayings, deepening the mystery. Ronald Jr. initially attempted to shift suspicion by blaming a mob hitman, fabricating a story to distance himself from the carnage. However, inconsistencies in his timeline and demeanor finally unraveled the deception. After hours of interrogation, he confessed, citing years of emotional and physical abuse, plus deep resentment toward his family. Yet even within his confession, he gave conflicting accounts, ranging from acting alone to implicating his sister Dawn, and sometimes claiming voices commanded him to slay. These contradictions have fueled theories that the full truth remains obscured. The DeFeo slayings shattered the idyllic image of a peaceful suburban neighborhood, marking the beginning of the house's dark legacy. The precision, silence, and ritualistic elements of the crime suggest something beyond a simple crime of passion. Was it a tragic act born purely of human anguish? Or could darker, more complex forces have played a part? These unsettling questions set the stage for a chain of events that would spiral far beyond that fateful night. Despite being convicted and sentenced to consecutive life terms, Ronald Jr. maintained that not everything about the slayings had been revealed. His shifting stories and the unresolved nature of certain forensic details have left shadows that refuse to dissipate. This lingering uncertainty adds a layer of chilling possibility that the house itself might be connected to something deeper than a mere crime scene. It's this sense of the unknown that propelled the legend of the house into public consciousness. Not long after the tragedy, the house stood empty, heavy with the weight of blood and sorrow. But this silence was broken just over a year later when a new family moved in, unknowingly stepping into a house haunted by both its past and the secrets it concealed. The stage was set not for closure, but for a new chapter of terror that would captivate and divide the world. The darkness that gripped the home seemed to seep far beyond the initial horror, hinting that the true story lay hidden behind closed doors. The new family, new terrors. In December of 1975, 13 months after the slayings, the Lutz family moved into the infamous Ocean Avenue house, unaware of the horrors waiting to unfold. George and Kathy Lutz, along with Kathy's 3 children, purchased the spacious 5-bedroom, 3-bath waterfront property, attracted by its charm and price. Although they were informed of the house's gruesome past, the family was not superstitious and hoped for a fresh start in a peaceful community. What they encountered, however, shattered those hopes in less than a month. Almost immediately after moving in, strange phenomena began to surface. The family dog, Harry, known for his calm nature, became distressed and nearly strangled himself trying to escape the backyard. Unexplainable odors appeared and vanished with no source, accompanied by mysterious cold spots in heated rooms. Doors creaked and slammed on their own, and eerie noises echoed through the house, turning their laughter into fear. One friend urged George to have the house blessed, an act they thought might bring relief. When a Catholic priest, Father Ray Pecoraro, did arrive to bless the home, things took a strange and unsettling turn. George claimed the priest was slapped by an invisible force and commanded to leave the home in what was once Don DeFeo's bedroom. The priest was said to have developed painful boils afterward. Yet under later scrutiny, Father Pecoraro stated he had only spoken to George by phone and never entered the house, casting doubt on this dramatic brush with the supernatural. Inside, Kathy sensed a female presence that sometimes wrapped gently around her, almost protectively, contrasting the growing unease. Their daughter, Missy, claimed to have made a new friend, a bizarre creature called Jody, described as a pig with glowing red eyes that stalked the property at night. Both George and Kathy reported seeing red eyes watching them through windows on a snowy evening. George even discovered hoof prints in the yard, despite there being no animals present. These signs deeply unsettled the family and escalated their fear. He discovered a secret basement area which construction documents for the house did not include. A small room appeared to have emerged from nowhere because its blood-red walls emitted an unpleasant odor. He claimed that the new presence increased the house's evil reputation for him. George developed a pattern of waking at 3:15 a.m. every night. He experienced a freezing sensation, although the heating system operated throughout the building. His situation resulted in 3 negative effects, which included a negative impact on his mental health, a physical decline in his body, and the disintegration of his relationship with his spouse. The children showed strange behaviors because they slept in the same position as the DeFeo family members who had died. The reports about black mold infecting their personal items and green slime which dripped from the walls created an impression that the house operated with evil energy. The house experienced 2 main disturbances which disrupted its normal operations. The couple reached their highest point of fear when George described how an invisible force propelled him out of bed while Kathy floated in space and her face changed into a withered elderly woman's appearance before returning to her regular form. Kathy had no memory of the event, a blank spot in their shared nightmare. These inconsistencies would later fuel investigations that sought to separate fact from fabrication, casting long shadows over the haunting's legacy. The Hidden Red Room. Among the most chilling and mysterious elements of the Amityville saga is the so-called Red Room, a hidden space in the basement that seemed to defy logic and floor plans. Discovered by George Lutz during his turbulent stay, this small room featured blood-red walls and an overpowering, foul stench that made it unbearable for anyone near it. Its existence and sudden appearance became one of the most tangible pieces of evidence cited by the Lutzes to prove the house was possessed by malevolent forces. The room was not on any official floor plans, raising the possibility it had been purposefully concealed. The red walls and disgusting odor gave it a ritualistic, almost sacrificial aura, hinting at some dark history embedded within the house's very structure. To the Lutz family, it symbolized the heart of the evil gripping their home, a place where something unnatural was rooted and feeding. Its discovery reinforced their fears and convinced them the house was more than just haunted. However, when subsequent homeowners moved in after the Lutzes fled, the Red Room was no secret, only a small storage closet under the stairs painted red. Rather than mysterious, it was mundane, filled with nothing more than old toys and household items. This stark contrast between terrifying rumors and later reality called into question much of the original story's credibility and the nature of what had truly frightened the Lutz family. Further complicating the room's mystery was its purported link to paranormal activities detailed by the Lutz family and other witnesses. The oppressive atmosphere and strange sensations reported near the Red Room were said to be unlike any other place in the house. Its presence seemed to concentrate the negative energy that tormented the family, making it a focal point of their despair and terror. Yet, without physical evidence or independent verification, the true significance of the Red Room remains uncertain. The Red Room story demonstrates how the haunted house legend they employ shows the process of discovering secret spaces which connect to previous traumatic events of evil. The spaces which exist in actual life and in people's imaginations function as symbols which represent hidden secrets and suppressed memories and the dark inner mind of a building's past. The Red Room in Amityville functions as a horror symbol which shows people their deepest fears because it exists as an actual thing. Disbelievers explain the room as an ordinary closet, while believers show how common explanations fail to explain everything about the situation by proving their emotional distress and their real experiences. The Red Room serves as a horrifying reminder that locations exist which maintain the sounds of past violent events and suffering. The Amityville legend contains its entire history, which exists as both a physical thing and a mental projection. The Lutz's accounts show their stories contain multiple contradictions, while later residents observe between two different realities which exist at their home. The Red Room demonstrates how strong stories develop because they create new views which alter human recollections. The Amityville story has become a permanent part of popular culture, which combines actual events with horror elements and traditional folk tales. The contrast between what was claimed and what was found heightened the intrigue and drew more investigators into the house's shadowed halls, all seeking answers beyond the supernatural. Contradictions and skepticism. The haunting tale of the Lutz family quickly captured the world's imagination. But beneath the surface of fear and frenzy lay a growing swarm of contradictions that threatened to unravel the story. Initially, their account seemed unshakable, fleeing in terror, refusing to return, and passing polygraph tests all added weight to their claims. Yet, as the years passed, researchers, journalists, and skeptics began to dig deeper, uncovering inconsistencies that cast doubt on the house's supernatural narrative. One of the earliest and most glaring contradictions involved Father Ray Pecoraro, the priest who was said to have bravely entered the house to perform a blessing. George Lutz described the priest being slapped by an unseen force and ordered to leave, a moment charged with supernatural menace. But Pecораro's later affidavit revealed a starkly different reality. He never entered the house and only spoke to George over the phone. This discrepancy muffled the credibility of one of the haunting's most dramatic anecdotes, hinting at embellishment or miscommunication. Perhaps equally puzzling was the story of Jody, a creature the young Lutz daughter claimed to have befriended. Described as a pig with glowing red eyes that stalked the yard, Jody became a terrifying fixture of the family's experience. Yet local weather reports contradicted the claim of a snowy night when hoofprints were supposedly found, raising doubts about the entire episode. Without physical evidence or corroboration, Jody's story strayed from chilling encounter into potential fabrication. The infamous Red Room, a space with blood-red walls and a disgusting odor that symbolized evil to the family, also raised questions. Later, homeowners found no secret or sinister room but a mundane storage closet painted red, filled with toys and ordinary clutter. This transformation from frightening hidden chamber to ordinary closet struck at the heart of the haunting's authenticity. How much of the terrifying vision was a product of trauma, suggestion, or creative storytelling? Adding to the skepticism were reports of physical damage within the house. The Lutz's claimed doors were blown off hinges, banisters torn from stairs, and even a window slammed on a child's fingers. However, the next family, the Cromartys, bought the house intact and found everything in perfect working order. Such a complete and rapid restoration from alleged chaos seemed implausible and prompted questions about the accuracy of the Lutz's complaints. The investigation into documents revealed more serious doubts which emerged from two sources. The historical picture depicted a young boy whose eyes emitted light, which supposedly showed him as a ghost who was connected to the slayings. The critics, together with most observers, believed that the figure shown in the image represented either a crew member or a visiting child who appeared under difficult lighting conditions. The images lack proof authenticity, which transforms them into exciting but non-binding scientific evidence. The case brought together two main paranormal investigators, Ed and Lorraine Warren, who became involved in the case study. The public believes that the Warrens developed their Amityville haunting investigation into a pattern which combined extreme evidence with non-verifiable proof. The investigation brought critical attention to the investigation, as skeptics who believed the entire haunting story was an invented myth started to investigate everything. The Lutz family maintained their conviction about their experiences because their belief system prevented them from accepting any other explanation. George Lutz maintained that the family did not share their story for financial profit because the actual earnings from their work became minor when compared to their cultural influence. The public developed a particular viewpoint because the story contained both truth and false elements, which created a fearful yet imaginary narrative. What started as a family's harrowing tale morphed into a legend riddled with doubts that haunt the story as much as any ghost might haunt the house. The lawyer's revelations. As the legend grew, a controversial voice emerged that would shake the very foundation of the Amityville story. William Weber, Ronald DeFeo Jr.'s defense attorney. Weber admitted publicly that he had met with the Lutz family shortly after they fled the house, and together they concocted elements of the haunting. His candid statement that "we created this horror story over many bottles of wine" sent shockwaves through the paranormal community and mainstream audiences alike. Weber claimed the horror elements were deliberately exaggerated to capitalize on the public's fascination with the DeFeo slayings. He suggested that what began as a defense strategy or desperate attempt for relevance mushroomed into a full-blown marketing machine. This revelation cast the entire haunting in a new light, as a commercial enterprise built on tragedy rather than pure experience. Despite Weber's admissions, the Lutzes remained unwavering in their insistence that something genuinely terrifying occurred. George Lutz defended the integrity of their story, emphasizing that they experienced unexplainable phenomena and that financial profit was not their driving force. The conflict between Weber's claims and the family's insistence adds a layer of complexity to the narrative. This apparent collaboration between defense attorney and victims to fabricate or embellish haunting stories raises critical questions about the motivations behind the Amityville legend. Was it a clever attempt to keep the public's attention off the real horrors of the slayings, or a way to generate income through books and movies? The blurry line between fact and fiction became increasingly difficult to discern. Beyond the confession, multiple details regarding paranormal claims were scrutinized and discredited over time. The green slime, black mold, and flying demons described in media adaptations lacked any photographic evidence. Some phenomena were clearly artistic inventions, inserted to heighten drama and suspense. These embellishments contributed to skepticism and damaged the story's credibility. The so-called injuries the family suffered, like the hand burns on Father Pecoraro or the crushed fingers from slammed windows, never held up to expert examination. The following residents found intact fixtures and no signs of supernatural damage. This disconnect between sensational claims and reality highlighted the growing gulf between the Lutz's narrative and the truth. Weber's role in shaping and pushing the haunting story suggested a level of orchestration unknown to many fans. It wasn't just a chilling ghost tale passed down by frightened homeowners. It had elements of planned storytelling, with all the commercial and dramatic instruments that implies. This cast long shadows over the haunting's legitimacy. Still, the legend persisted, fueled by media, books, and films, embedding itself deeply into pop culture. Whether born from genuine experience, opportunism, or a mixture of both, the Amityville story proved irresistible. Weber's revelations invited new questions, but also intensified public fascination. Amid the layers of myth and marketing, the discovery of hidden rooms in the house brought new questions about what shadows might linger beyond the tales told aloud. Forensic doubts about the slayings. The brutal slayings that took place at 112 Ocean Avenue continue to baffle experts as forensic investigations raised questions that challenge the official narrative of a lone perpetrator. Though Ronald DeFeo Jr. confessed to the crimes, certain forensic details don't neatly align with a simple single perpetrator story. Autopsy reports and ballistics evidence revealed odd inconsistencies, particularly involving the youngest victims and the sequence of shots fired, that have fueled alternative theories about that night. One of the most striking anomalies involves Dawn DeFeo, the eldest sister. Her autopsy showed unburned gunpowder on her nightgown, which could only occur if she had recently fired a weapon at close range. This detail contradicts the idea that she was merely a passive victim, suggesting she may have been awake or involved during the shootings. The bullet trajectory through her head differed slightly from those of her siblings, further complicating the timeline of events. No signs of a struggle were found in her room or others, which is strange if she, or anyone else, was awake during the attacks. Some experts speculate the slayings might have happened so quickly that panic had little time to manifest. But this does not explain the uniform face-down positioning of bodies or lack of defensive wounds. The methodology remains baffling and unsettling to forensic analysts, deepening the mystery rather than resolving it. Additionally, Ronald Jr. repeatedly changed his accounts. In some versions, he acted completely alone in a substance-induced haze, while in others, he hinted at involvement by family members, even suggesting voices or influences beyond himself. Such conflicting testimonies cloud the case and suggest he might have been protecting others or obscuring key facts. This has led some criminologists to consider the possibility of conspiracies or multiple shooters. Speculation about criminal ties also complicates the story. Rumors circulated that the DeFeo family had connections to organized crime, which might explain the silence of neighbors and strange, almost ritualistic qualities of the slayings. Speculation even arose that authorities pressed the case through the court system quickly to avoid public scandal or exposure of deeper secrets. These theories are difficult to prove, but add dark layers to the house's haunted history. The psychological makeup of Ronald Jr. also feeds into the uncertainty. He developed antisocial personality disorder, which led to his substance addiction and tumultuous family interactions that produced dangerous situations. Some experts believe years of trauma, manipulation, and substance abuse created a perfect storm, making a violent explosion almost inevitable. The forensic ambiguities leave open the question of how much of that tension directly influenced the night's events. The forensic doubts show that actual horror exists in more complex and less tangible forms than any ghost story. The contradictions force us to question the neat narrative of a lone slayer and consider more complex human layers of pain and darkness. The door remains open for people to speculate about supernatural forces while they investigate family dynamics and hidden family secrets. The house echoes with unresolved forensic questions which create an atmosphere that matches the intensity of whispered ghost stories. The walls seem to remember past battles and unrest because they hold secret knowledge which remains hidden from both the legal system and society. The night of the slayings remains an unsolved riddle, wrapped in tragedy and shadow. From the tangled evidence of the slayings, attention shifts to how that trauma may have shaped the house's eerie presence, affecting those who dared to call it home. The house's psychological legacy. The notion that a house could remember violence and pain is more than poetic. It's a theory psychologists have explored when examining reports like those from the Lutz family. Environments shaped by trauma, abuse, and death can leave emotional residues that influence subsequent occupants, especially those sensitive or already under stress. This idea suggests that what the Lutzes experienced might have been less about supernatural forces and more about the psychological effects imprinted on the space. Research in environmental psychology shows that places associated with intense emotional events can trigger heightened senses, anxiety, and even hallucinations in those living there. Everyday sounds, creaks, and shadows can be amplified by fear and suggestion, creating a feedback loop of perceived paranormal activity. The Lutz family's growing stress and deteriorating mental health likely intensified their interpretations of normal occurrences as sinister and malevolent. The phenomenon of psychogenic or psychosomatic experiences, where the mind creates physical reactions to psychological stress, might explain episodes such as Kathy's feelings of being wrapped by an unseen presence, or George's nightly awakenings at exactly 3:15 a.m. The mind's struggle to process trauma, compounded by the house's dark history, could manifest as vivid and terrifying sensations, blurring the line between reality and perception. Children, often more sensitive to emotional climates, echoed the original family's tragedy by sleeping on their stomachs, a haunting mimicry of the DeFeo victims' positions. This behavior highlights how psychological states and environmental cues can impact even the youngest members in deeply subconscious ways, amplifying the overall atmosphere of dread. The presence of black mold and green slime might have reinforced feelings of decay and neglect, further feeding the family's unease. Even more intense claims, levitations, poltergeist activity, strange voices may have roots in this heightened psychological state. When combined with Hollywood embellishments and media frenzy, the narrative grows into a self-sustaining legend. Phenomena once shared in hushed, fearful tones escalate into astonishing demonstrations of supernatural power, often disconnected from verifiable reality. Experts in trauma victimology note that victims or witnesses to violence often re-experience trauma in sensory and emotional ways long after the event. A house steeped in such history can act as a trigger, turning normal environmental stimuli into reminders of past horrors. For the Lutz family, living with this invisible weight might have been an overwhelming psychological trial manifesting as haunting phenomena. This framework doesn't negate the family's genuine fear or suffering. Instead, it offers a lens to understand how human minds interact with environments layered in pain and memory. The idea that spaces hold trauma suggests a profound connection between human experience and place, shaping everything from emotions to perceptions. As layers of truth unfold, they call us to look beyond sensational stories and confront the real, often invisible, scars that tragedy leaves behind. The final truth behind Amityville. The deeper you look into the Amityville story, the more it becomes clear that the true horror may not be ghosts or demons, but human darkness layered with trauma and secrets. After years of investigation, claims, and counterclaims, a sobering reality emerges, one rooted in betrayal, psychological torment, and family tragedy, rather than supernatural hauntings. The house's legacy is less about spirits and more about the human capacity for violence and the shadows it leaves behind. Ronald DeFeo Jr.'s shifting stories cast a long shadow over the official account. While originally he admitted to acting alone in a substance-fueled rage, later versions from prison hinted at his sister Dawn's involvement. He claimed they planned only to slay their abusive parents, but that Dawn went rogue and slain the younger siblings. This disturbing twist complicates the narrative and suggests a more tangled, darker family dynamic, far removed from simple explanations. Forensic evidence adds weight to this theory. Dawn's body showed signs, like unburned gunpowder on her nightgown and a bullet trajectory differing from the others, that she may have fired a weapon and acted consciously that night. While some dismiss these as coincidences or errant details, they raise troubling questions about her role and the true sequence of events. Could the slaying have been the climax of years of manipulation, control, and trauma within the DeFeo family? Indeed, many criminologists now believe that the violence was not sudden, but years in the making. Ronald Jr. was reportedly subjected to extreme control and abuse, his personality becoming volatile under the constant pressure of substance and family dynamics. Such psychological stress can erupt catastrophically, especially when paired with substance abuse, resulting in actions no one wishes to confront. The massacre may have been the final break in a deeply fractured family system. This understanding offers an alternative lens to view the so-called paranormal activity reported by the Lutz family. Psychologists argue that spaces burdened with emotional violence can evoke psychological reactions in new occupants, especially those who are vulnerable or suggestible. Perhaps what was perceived as haunting was actually the raw residue of fear, rage, and sorrow lingering in the home's atmosphere. A haunting of memories rather than ghosts. The Lutz narrative presents contradictory elements because the story contains invented details which skeptics and investigators have demonstrated to be false. The public spectacle that followed the events, fueled by books, films, and media circus, blurred the lines between fact and fiction. The house became a commercial platform where myths thrived, obscuring the painful human truths at its core. The Warren couple, who investigated paranormal activities, became famous, yet their investigation of the Amityville case received backlash because they used witness accounts as evidence while failing to produce any substantiating documentation. The haunting study brought about widespread recognition, yet it failed to reveal the home's authentic nature. The Amityville story serves as a reflection of the fundamental conflict that exists between storytelling methods and scientific validation of belief systems. The complete resolution of 112 Ocean Avenue mystery remains impossible because people will always hold divergent opinions about its existence. The location exists as a haunted space which shelters spirits, or as a mute observer who has seen horrifying human events throughout history. The ongoing uncertainty creates an opportunity for us to examine two challenging matters which exist between supernatural phenomena and the actual hidden dangers of domestic violence and family secrets. The Amityville mystery stretches far beyond ghost stories and horror films, revealing a tragic and complex human saga. From chilling slayings to disputed hauntings and hidden truths, the house remains a symbol of pain and legend intertwined. If you found this exploration eye-opening, please like and subscribe for more deep dives into the world's most compelling mysteries. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next video.